All right, so this video is going to be covering the basic groundwork for the basic foundation for, I guess, everything. I guess this is the side that's more mentally focused. And so, first of all, this is going to be a talking format. Don't necessarily need to watch the video, but if you'd like to, I'm here. So today I'm going to be covering the idea of chaos and order and the intersection between them. And so essentially, when you have, and everything in your life can be put into the category of chaos or of order. And it's how you navigate through the both of them that ultimately determines how your life turns out. And so what do I mean by that? What do I mean by chaos? What do I mean by order? We'll start with order. So order is what you know. It's coming home and knowing that your house will still be there. It's starting your car and having the car start. It's having a stable job, having a repetitive schedule to come back to. It's things that are consistent, that we know, that we keep doing. All right? Order at its very most negative extent can be tyrannical. And in that way, it's oftentimes put in a masculine, it's characterized as being masculine. It's something where it's very stable and to the point where it can be a flaw, and to the point where, for example, let's say an over-controlling government can be extreme order. However, there's no freedom, there's no liberty, and with that, no creativity, no progress. Order is the same, and it doesn't allow for new things to come to be. And much like in a relationship, you can have typically a masculine role that introduces a lot of order into the household to the point where it can become tyrannical. However, order is good, and I guess the best way to explain why it's good, or why it can be good, is to also explain chaos. And so chaos is the unknown. It's your car not starting on a cold day. It's the California fires that occurred. It's any catastrophe, any event that you didn't expect that failed to meet your expectations. It's the unknown. It's traveling out into the forest. It's doing something different. It's being uncomfortable and exposing yourself to something that you don't really fully understand. And so this is essential, though, to our life. And I should also say it's also feminine. It's also typically considered to be feminine because it's creation. And, women they bring children into this world. That's a very new thing. That's a creation. And generally it's considered to be something that's more feminine. It's also not having a schedule is a very good example of that. And you can see how sometimes you don't necessarily want a tight schedule, but when you don't have anything going on, you can find yourself venturing into the unknown, and it's just as uncomfortable. And so that's chaos, is that unknown. It's things that you can't control, things that you don't know. And it is also essential, though, because without it, then there can never be anything novel. There can never be anything new. You can never change or become malleable in any way. And of course, change is always occurring. And that's where the idea of yin and yang comes into play. And so if you imagine yin and yang, the symbol, all right, we have white order, Okay, so white is pure, it's clean, it's order. Okay, and then there's the black, chaos. It's stepping out into the darkness where you don't know what is going on. It's the unknown. And within yin and yang, there is a dot of white within the black and a dot of black within the white. And what that means is that no matter how much order you can have, there is still chaos that can come of it. And you could imagine in that yin and yang, in the symbol, if that black were to expand from the white, it would suddenly become, that would suddenly become the black half. And if the white were to expand within the black, that would suddenly become the white half. And so they both are integral to each other. You cannot have one without the other. A good example of this is that the world is always changing. Your house isn't always going to be there in the next 100, 200 years. It might not be there anymore. Some catastrophic event could occur. The world is always changing. You are always changing. And that is another form of chaos, the birth and death of you. And so there is this this juxtaposition of the two within our life. And it's how most religions are formatted at their very basic level. And so an example that I can give from each religion. So first of all, yin and yang is Taoism. And that has this chaos and order within the yin and the yang. Within Christianity itself, you have God or Jesus, which is, well, not Jesus, but more so God, is this order. It's the truth. It's something that's stable that you can hold on to. And the cross is suffering. It's something that you can firmly plant yourself in. And then you have the idea of novelty, and that's often the Virgin Mary. It's bringing something new to this world, bringing a revelation of sorts. And so that's how you can see it. You have the feminine Virgin Mary, and then God, who's masculine, portrayed as masculine. Within Hinduism, there's tons of different gods, tons of different things going on, but you have a similar idea where you have like Brahman, I believe, and then Shiva, and Shiva's the destroyer. It's what is, and that's ultimately what chaos can be. And then Brahma is more so the more stability, at least I believe so. And so these are sort of like ways that this is incorporated into different religions. And in between them, however, in between this chaos and order, there is this very narrow path. And this is the path that we are supposed to travel on if you want to be successful. If you choose to live most true to our human nature, most true to the idea that there's chaos and order. There's a very narrow line in between the yin and the yang, and that is the path that we're supposed to walk on. And so what is meant by that? How are we supposed to walk on this path of chaos and order? How are we supposed to decipher this within ourselves? And the best way I've heard it described is that there is the best way I've heard it described is that you should have one foot planted into order, into what you know, into what's stable, and 1 foot that is poking out and stepping into chaos. And in this way, you hold on to what you have, but you're also exploring and venturing out and scaring yourself, getting out of your comfort zone, doing new things. And so to provide a very basic example of this, we'll start with something that's much more like fictional. So let's say you are in a village, right? It's long ago, you're in a medieval time, you're in a village, and you can choose to stay within the village. And that's order, that's what you know. You can choose to stay in the village. However, being in the village, there are inevitably things that occur that are chaotic, because chaos comes of everything. And so let's say there is some predator that is outside of the village, right? And it keeps coming in at night, and it keeps, killing the people in the village, killing certain people in the village. And there's just this unjust chaos that's occurring, all right? Now, you can choose to have the decision to stay in the village and be ignorant of the changes in the world that are going on. Be ignorant of the things outside of your walls. And you can choose to stay in there. However, you still know that it's ultimately there is chaos, and that this thing is occurring, and that you could do something about it. And so let's say you do decide to do something about it. All right. One path you could take is to say, okay, tonight I'm going to go out in the village and I'm going to find the predator. You walk out of the village into the darkness, and you get lost, and you're untrained, you're unprepared, you don't know how to hunt, you don't know any survival skills, anything like that, and you could ultimately die. And that's why chaos is so scary to us, because at a certain point in time, chaos would lead ultimately to our death. And that's why we have these reflexes of anxiety and nervousness, is because at some point in time, to enter into chaos meant to risk your life. And we don't necessarily have the same repercussions, although you could say you are dying in a different way if you are not pursuing chaos. Because you're not living, you're not being born again. You're not stepping into chaos. So another path that you could take is to say, okay, the predator's here. I'm going to take 1 year to train. I'm going to learn how to make a fire. I'm going to spend time with soldiers. I'm going to learn how to hunt, all these things. And you're going to take a long time to train. And then you're going to step out into the forest. And maybe the first night you just go a mile out and come back the next day. And you learn, in the daytime, you start to venture out and learn the new territory and learn where you are. And you start becoming a very good hunter, a very good navigator. And you keep doing these things in preparation. And then ultimately one day you go out into the forest. However, this time you've brought order in the form of your training that you've acquired. And then you've also are stepping into chaos. It's still scary to go out there and hunt for this predator. It's still scary to put yourself out there, put your skills to the test, risk your life. And that's the chaotic part. But ultimately, let's say you kill the predator, all right? And you bring back its head to the village, and they all celebrate you. What are you? You're a hero, all right? You are a hero to the village. And so this is the idea of the hero's journey, is to have that fine line between chaos and order, and walk on that line. And ultimately that will find you with these heroic moments. And so that's a very out there example, very metaphorical, but now let's move into something more relevant. So let's say you have school or work. You can choose to stay confined within the walls of what you're doing, all right? And there are varying degrees of this. So you could choose some people are workaholics, and they stay within this tyrannical state. They choose to stay within the tyranny, um, and that's not entirely bad. They're doing good. Um, like that's just a way that you can live. You can choose to stay within the walls of what you're used to. All right, but there's a high chance that it is not ultimately what is going to lead to the best possible good for all parties involved. There's a high probability that maybe you should step out of the walls a little bit, and there is something else that you need to face, that you may know you need to face, but you're too scared to. There's something out there that scares you, that your mind thinks is going to hurt you. It's that predator out there outside of the village. And ultimately, you can choose to stay within the walls of where you are, or you can venture out. And so you could venture out by quitting your job right away. You could venture out by dropping out of college and just stopping. But that's a lot like the first trial that our hero went through in the story, where you can do that and then ultimately you might like hit the ground. You might die. You're not prepared. You haven't done anything to prepare. And so that's you in the modern world going from complete tyranny to complete chaos. Whereas if you were to say, okay, I'm going to set a 3-year plan for how I'm going to address these problems that I know I need to address in life, but that I'm too scared to address. I'm going to set up a 5-year, 10-year plan on how I'm going to ultimately achieve what I desire. And it's going to suck. It's going to be a lot of suffering. It's going to be a lot of short-term pain for long-term benefit. But that is the hero's journey. And so you can do that, and you can make it out, and you can ultimately become something that you never thought you'd become. You can have that experience of preparing and then finally go out, risk your life, but you're prepared. And so you continue down this path, ultimately the hero's journey, and you achieve what you're meant to achieve within your life. And so this is you in the modern world walking that line of chaos and order. And so I guess the best thing that you can do right now at this point in time from this story is to start trying to, in your daily life, identify the sources of order and the sources of chaos in your life. Start to identify what is something that is stable for you, things that keep you where you are, keep you on your feet, but that can also ultimately become limiting factors to who you could really become, because you're not taking a risk and going out and taking one foot and stepping it into chaos. And so that's the other part of it, is identifying oftentimes what is scary to you. Oftentimes what you fear is what is chaotic, and it's what you choose to stay away from, usually. And so identify ways that you can enter into that chaos, enter into the unknown. And ultimately, what you'll find is that when you identify what you know and what you don't know and what you need to find out, you start to walk along this path and you start to live a life of extreme enthusiasm, extreme focus, and excitement. Now, why is that? It's because you have this part of you that is risking your life, in quotation marks, risking your life. This part of you that's stepping out, that's chasing the predator, that could die in way back then, but now is ultimately just scared and could lose a lot of safety and security with what you're doing today. You know, you could ultimately go down a very bad path entering into chaos. And so you are constantly alert because you're just on the edge where you need competence, you need alertness in order to succeed at where you are, because you're just on this fine line, this what do you call it? Like paper thin line, this thin hair of, I'm going to give much more metaphors of what is order and chaos. And so you need to be focused, you need to be intense, you need to be engulfed in what you're doing. And that's where life's exciting. That's where you make memories. That's where you laugh and where you cry and where you ultimately feel alive. And so it's identifying that chaos and that order and moving from that, having a plan. In the modern world, you can have a plan, and starting to venture out into unexplored territory because you know that you're avoiding something that can ultimately hurt you or that is hurting you. And you know that you do not need to stay confined within these walls and that there's more out there, that you're capable of more. And so that is the very basic constituents. That's a great word. Very basic constituents of chaos and order and what your life is composed of.